as Sri Lankan authorities worry about the potential of more suicide attacks by the group behind the Easter Sunday bombings. One newspaper has published an exhaustive study of all the Islamic terror attacks around the world since 9/11. According to the German newspaper Die Welt, Islamic extremists have carried out 31,222 attacks in the past 18 years. Those attacks have killed 146,811 people around the world. Most of the victims have been Muslim. The newspaper analyzed all the information gathered by the Global Terrorism Database at the University of Maryland to come up with the numbers of attacks and lives lost. The list concludes with the recent attacks in Sri Lanka that killed at least 253 people and injured more than 500 when suicide bombers targeted churches and hotels on the island nation. Joining me to discuss the impact of those sobering numbers is Muhammad Tawhidi. He's a third-generation Iranian-born Australian Muslim and author of The Tragedy of Islam, Admissions of a Muslim Imam. Mr. Tawhidi, thank you so much for coming on the show. The research shows the geography of Islamist terror stretches today from Europe to the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. How do we combat the scourge of radical Islamic terrorism?
Greetings and thank you very much for having me on. Firstly, in order for us to combat and tackle this wave of terrorism, we need to understand that the definition of terrorism that we use is different from that of the jihadists. The jihadists do not believe that what they are doing is wrong. They believe it is noble to blow themselves up, and therefore there is a clash in understanding in what exactly is going on. Firstly, they do not need an actual government or a geographic location to establish a caliphate. They target areas with weak intelligence and governments that are paying attention to other issues such as political correctness, and they infiltrate and drive their agenda in these areas.
The world saw new images of ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi this week as he warned followers that the battle of Islam against the Crusaders is a long battle, he said. Do we know how to fight this battle, and are we prepared to engage in sort of the long haul of this battle?
Well, your question is, do we know how to fight this battle? Of course we know how to fight this battle, but are we prepared to take on this battle? We can fight this battle, and it's very easy. We deport every extremist imam in the country. We cancel visas of people coming in from Iran and Saudi Arabia to preach hatred in this coming month of Ramadan to the West. And we stop the construction of new mosques without vetting the people behind them and stop foreign funding from Islamist countries. That's a very good step towards fighting this extremism. So we do know how to fight them. The question is, are we prepared to? And unfortunately, Europe is being run by governments that do not care about their Christian heritage and Christian religion. They don't care about anything that's happening. All they want to do is rule and stay in power, and they use the political correctness machine to do so.
Talk about the political correctness. Is that going to be the death of our societies around the world?
It is the current beginning of the death. It's already happening. There are areas in France where Christians cannot walk freely. President Macron has come out saying that the Islamist movements want to secede from France. This is a leader of a country telling you that he has lost control. He's admitting finally that he has lost control. There are serious agendas being played in that region. Look, I am a Muslim, but I cannot live in an Islamist theocracy. I can live in a Christian government based on their constitution, because that is where peace lies. I can't live in a place where ISIS rules the area. That's no Muslim with a brain that works would want to live under ISIS, right? And when we come to the West trying to warn the governments and intelligence agencies about what is happening, about the people we fled from, we have this new political correctness agenda that tells us, oh, we're the racists, we're the ones who are traitors, and the extremists needs to be understood and embraced, and they have a point, let's listen to them. And sooner or later they're in parliament, they're in government, and there you go in America, you have Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib changing the narrative in Washington that is now affecting the whole, influencing and affecting the narrative around the world, attacking Jews, attacking Christians, and this is just the beginning. So if Christians don't wake up, Christian leaders don't wake up, then we Muslims who fled from extremists can't help you anymore. We tried warning you.
ISIS may have lost their self-styled caliphate in Iraq and Syria, but they are still a threat in many countries, right?
It's not self-styled caliphate. It's a real caliphate. They have announced a caliph, and they have an army, and they have a mission, they have an agenda, and they have a lot of influence, and they have politicians in the West that love them, and they have people who lead organizations, not-for-profit organizations in Australia that refuse to condemn them. They have an agenda that is widespread in different names. It is a well-established caliphate. Let's be real about it. We are fighting a real caliphate. We're not fighting a so-called caliphate. This is the true extremist Islamist militant ideology that is taking over our lands and our countries. And you see, with one attack, they took 300 lives in Sri Lanka, injured over 500 people. This is not a so-called caliphate. This is a caliphate in action, and we need to treat it as a caliphate in action, take it seriously, and drive them to the ground.